I call this meeting to order, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please silence all your cell phones. Take a moment of silent prayer. Thank you. This morning I'll begin the roll call with Commissioner Vicki Cos.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Jeff Culverson's here. Commissioner Doug Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Stevens.
Here.
All present and accounted for. I don't have anybody signed up for public comment. Anybody in the room have public comment? If not, we'll move on to administrative business. Mr. Lothery, you have anything this morning for administrative business? No. Anyone on the board have anything for administrative? We'll move on to...
Yeah, I got one thing too.
Okay.
Vicki, do you have anything?
No, I was just saying that.
Okay. Just one thing. You know, we got the information passed out on Mark's evaluation, and if it's all right with the board, I've talked to Mark. If we could get that turned back into him by next Wednesday, if that'll work with everybody. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Good point. Did you have something, Mike?
I just wanted to express my appreciation to my fellow commissioners over these years that we worked together, and it's been a really good opportunity, and we're going to keep working together until January. But I just want to express appreciation and thanks, and we're going to keep pushing for this property tax relief.
Here,
We
here.
have no other choice.
Right.
Somebody's got to do it
Somebody's got to do
Yeah.
it. Right.
because it ain't getting done.
Well said, Mike. Well said.
Anybody else have anything before we move on to Janet? If not, Janet, do you have something for us? Want to do that?
I'm going to ask the commissioners to please pick some precincts for the audit that will take place on Friday morning at 9 o'clock here in the boardroom. I do not know what races we will be auditing yet. That is turned down to us or turned over to us from the Secretary of State's office. So I will have you pick some precincts from 4 different districts in order for me to have a precinct that corresponds with whatever race I receive to audit. We will audit a federal race. We will audit a state, whether it be state representative or state senator, and we will audit a local race. Even most of the time we would be able to pick the local candidate, but this year the Secretary of State is picking even the local candidate from us. So it's very impartial, it's very fair, and no one knows ahead of time. So we will complete that on Friday morning. We had 10,343 people vote out of over 54,000 people that are registered. We had around a 19% turnout. We do have, I think, 96 provisionals that we will look at when you do the canvass a week from today. We will have mail that will be looked at if it is postmarked Election Day or prior that comes in over the next 3 days. Does anybody have any questions?
What if there's not a postmark on it?
There is no postmark. It does not get counted. I'm in contact each election season with the post office, even with our local post office, and I ask them to make sure it's postmarked because that is the regulation that we have to follow is a postmark.
Does that happen? It probably does, doesn't it?
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, because I've noticed a lot of mail doesn't
times
get
that
postmarked.
Yeah. I think you're being kind.
something
Yeah.
is not postmarked.
Yeah.
We, in Leavenworth County, of course, we pay for the ballot going out, but we also pay for the ballot postage when someone puts it back in the mail to us. So we make the process as easy and convenient for the voter. Normally, during a primary election in a presidential year, we'll see 35, 40, 43%. So it was disappointing to me and the office that we saw a 19% turnout. I visited with the Secretary of State's office a few times yesterday, and they expected Leavenworth County to have a high percentage of turnout. Leavenworth County, throughout the entire state of Kansas, had more local races than any other county. And so for us to have a 19% turnout was surprising. Now, when I was planning for this election, or, when we, as the office, was planning for the election, we anticipated a much higher turnout. So we order more ballots.
Sure.
We hire more election workers. There's so much work that goes into an election prior to election day. So it costs, the cost of putting on any election is, it's expensive, just to tell you the truth. So not to have the turnout is probably my biggest disappointment. I congratulate all the candidates that are successful in their races, but the most important job in my aspect is voter turnout. And when you don't see it, it's...
What do you expect? The presidentials are usually about 35 or 40. Is that what it runs in Leavenworth County?
When we had the presidential election in November, Leavenworth County has always seen over a 70% turnout. I
Okay.
don't know what this year will bring, but
Okay.
that's been a normal. So, if one of you would like to step down and draw from these...
Chair? Nominated second. All in favor, say aye.
You just pick one from each pile. Because that's
Just like
the
a
only-
game.
Right. I'll just kind of mix them up. Okay, so we have 4 different precincts picked. I'll use 3 of these on Friday and go from there.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you very much. Is that all you had for us, Janet, for
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Unless anybody has any questions for me.
Nope, we just sincerely appreciate all your hard work and
Oh my
the work
gosh,
of the
And all the
volunteers.
election workers' hard
And the
work.
volunteers.
And
Yeah.
how, and how smooth it runs.
Yeah.
They put in a long day.
Yes,
now?
they-
Yeah, tell all your staff and volunteers especially.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Thank you guys very, very much.
We'll see you Friday. So we're having a special meeting Friday then.
No, they just have a,
No,
they just
they
do
don't.
that. The
We
We don't
clerk's
need to be
office.
here.
Just
Right?
next Wednesday,
Okay.
we'll look.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was the next Wednesday.
That audit is open to the public.
Yes.
Friday. Yep. Okay. Any more administrative business from anybody? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just wanted everybody to look at what the cost to do all these autopsies that the county
Yeah.
has to pay for, an unfunded
State unfunded mandate.
Yes.
Yep.
It was, 38,000, something like that.
I have a motion and a second. Begin voting with Commissioner Cos.
Aye.
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 Consent agenda passes. Moving on.
38,470.
$38,000. Local taxpayer money.
Death tax.
That's what it is.
Consider a motion to approve a quitclaim deed correcting prior erroneous deed as presented.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, in 1999, Mr. J.R. Evans and Ms. Joyce Evans donated land for the purpose of the lagoon system for Sewer District Number 9. Subsequent to that, under KDHE directive, the county decommissioned that lagoon system and the land reverted back to the Evans. At that time, a quitclaim deed was executed by the Board of County Commissioners that erroneously referred to a Joyce E. Evans Trust, which did not exist. Now, I can tell you this, I did not prepare that deed. I'm looking at it now, it uses language I would not use. It also, they changed the font, which quite frankly I would find extra effort and would not have done. But regardless of that, Ms. Evans has unfortunately recently passed away, and the heirs of her estate are now the owners of that tract of property. But since it was referring to a Joyce E. Evans Trust, which never existed, it creates a cloud on the title. In working with counsel for the two heirs and Evans estate, we've determined that a new quitclaim deed signed by each of you, so that we don't have to try to track down the minutes in the future to prove title, would be appropriate, and I'd ask that you vote to approve the quitclaim deed as presented.
Wouldn't this be Sewer District 3?
I believe it's Sewer District Number 9.
Is it?
Yeah. Regardless, the legal description as checked is appropriate and would clear the title so that these two heirs can take the property. That property has an impending sale, so this is time sensitive.
So you could build on this?
That's up to someone else to determine, Commissioner.
So,
I worked on that decommission job.
so just to catch everybody up that's listening to speed, when the county takes over these sewer districts, part of the requirements are that land that the lagoon sits on be deeded to the city or county that it is situated in. So they're all the same way. This one we just needed to clean up. There was a problem with the neighbor's deed. Yeah.
We don't do it anymore.
No,
So
we're out of the sewer
we're out of the
business.
sewer business
Yeah.
as soon as these.
Terrible idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless we have a county-wide sewer thing.
Yeah.
Treatment plant, but that's.
Not
We
these,
don't have the money to do the study on that.
not these little neighborhood ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Any other discussion, Mike?
I'll make a motion to approve a quitclaim deed correcting prior erroneous deed as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, begin voting with Commissioner Cobb.
Aye.
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 Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr.
5-0.
Chairman, members of the Commission. Because each of your signatures needs to be witnessed and notarized, I'd ask that you take a few moments at the conclusion of this meeting. I will ask if I can get a notary up here so that they can witness your signature. She will need a photo ID from each of you.
Okay.
I didn't bring my ID.
Next, consider a motion
Mine's
to
in the car.
approve.
Mine's in my car.
Consider a motion to approve the change order for base stabilization for the Bridge ST60 project in the amount of $22,027.89. Morning, Bill.
Morning, Commissioners. Today for your consideration is the change order for the structure located on 206th Street, ST60. This is the same change order type that was previously approved approximately 6 weeks ago for the other structure that was built on ST60. Benish is the design engineer, failed to incorporate the geotechnical engineer's report information in the bid tab, and the necessary base stabilization aggregate was not included as part of that bid item. They had specified a dirt compaction effort. There are 3 engineering firms that are associated with these arch culverts. You do have a structural engineer who is a Contech employee. You have a geotechnical engineer who did the borings and the sampling, and you have a civil engineer. It's the civil engineer's role to incorporate all of the different reports into a proper design and bid specification sheet. While this is a change order, like you are aware of, it is not necessarily a betterment. It's not a betterment of the project. It would have been included in the project if the engineer had correctly identified that information. And so therefore, it'll be very difficult. We will attempt to recoup some of these costs as they were not included in a competitive bid process, but it would have been a part of the project, and so it is considered an omission. I cannot sit here with any certainty of how successful we'll be with that attempt. As you guys are aware, we have had a strained relationship with that firm in the past, and there have been some significant change orders of which they have covered all of the costs of, but they weren't omissions, they were flat out errors.
Well, either way, this needs to be done. I mean, when a job like this,
Yep.
and you're just going to have constant settling if you don't have the base stabilized. So, I move that we approve change order for base stabilization for project ST60 on 206th Street, County Road 25, whatever you want to call it.
I have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing
The
none.
amount in there or not?
Oh, $27.89. Thank you.
Second.
Motion and a second. No further discussion. Begin voting with Commissioner Cobb.
Aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Thanks,
Thank
Bill.
you.
Thanks, Bill.
Bill?
That's everything I had on formal board actions. Budget discussion as needed.
Commissioners, as you're aware, I've told you I was going to have this on every week. However, this week particularly, I do need some finalized direction because next week you will need to approve the formal public hearing, which establishes the maximum amount of the mill levy. Obviously, up until the day of the hearing, you can reduce that mill levy, but you cannot increase it once we put out this official notice. So in order to prepare those documents for next week, I'm looking for some guidance. We have been discussing what I originally proposed to you and then some changes that I suggested in order to keep a flat mill levy. But the enhancements that were presented during the budget hearing, which would be the EMS wage enhancement at the county attorney's office, the 911 request that you heard, those types of things, in order to fund those, it wouldn't set aside any money then for the courthouse repairs. And you, as a commission, had also discussed maybe adding an enhancement to the roads department for so that we can try to keep up with, not enhance, this is just trying to keep up with inflation that's hit that department significantly. I had sent an email to you all with some suggestions. I'm happy to go through those today and just trying to get, again, feedback on do you want to increase the mill levy or how you want to address those funding issues as far as the roads department and how we handle the courthouse. So, looking for direction. If you want me to go through those, I can. If you have an idea what
Please
that
go
is.
through
I think it'd be a good idea, Mark.
So the original budget, which proposed a flat mill levy, allowed for a certain amount of money to go towards the courthouse. I had set aside $629,000. Right now, my estimate is that will take about 7 years at that rate, 7 to 8 years to fund the repairs to the courthouse. That did not include any of the enhancements that I just discussed. Trying to come up with a plan to address those enhancements, which were again, EMS, county attorney, 911. I came up with a proposal, but it then leaves it without funding for the courthouse, which would require a levy increase. So what I had proposed would be that to reallocate the $629,000 set aside for the courthouse repairs to the county attorney and EMS. That wouldn't quite cover 100% of their ask, but I believe it gets us close enough to resolve that balance. Further, I would reduce economic development budget $350,000 and reallocate $300,000 to the 911 fund. That would cover what they asked for. And by that, what I mean is we would basically reduce the mill levy and economic development, increase the general mill levy, and transfer money into the 911 fund to fund that. That should cover the 911 fund going forward. However, I do not think that is a permanent solution, just to let you know, because as the 911 fees that we collect go down, that mill levy may not generate enough revenue to address it. I would freeze the Economic Development Director's position and reevaluate it on an annual basis. And then as far as the $250,000 that they requested for 911 fees this year, that would have to replace the lost 911 fees, that would need to come from the sheriff's budget, and I believe that he would have that based on the number of openings that he's had throughout the year. I think we could reallocate those wages towards this as a one-time fix, and then the mill levy adjustment going forward. Questions about that part of it?
Now, I remember part of what the county attorney's increase was, but what are some of the? Could you go over that again?
What he had requested was additional wages for his attorneys to try to keep up with the market. I do agree with his analysis on that. He provided you the data supporting that. I do agree with his analysis that as far as wages go, he is on the low end
Yes.
for what you can hire attorneys at.
Yep.
And I know just from internally what we had to do to recruit, I know that he's on the low end. So that would address what he had requested and to help him be able to recruit attorneys for his department.
Now, we still have 2 administrators that we allotted funds during the COVID relief effort that we left that funding in place. Is that correct?
You mean his administrative positions?
Yes.
I can only speak to since I've been here, but we have added administrative positions in his department over the last 7 years or so. But those were not positions specific to COVID. The attorneys that he requested, the 2 attorneys positions that he requested specifically to COVID, were never filled.
Okay, but he did ask. There was administrative positions during that period.
There were
of time
administrative
as well.
positions, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. That
It was
those
for
were
COVID backlog.
The attorneys were.
I believe the administrative position. We've had this discussion.
I think when the county attorney was here, what he said those administrative positions were for was to help with the changeover in the software that they're going through right now. They have to basically use two software systems because the one they currently use is outdated and going away, and they're transitioning to the new state one. So they're entering data. I believe that was his reason for that when he came in for his budget.
I've just looked at that department the last few budget cycles, and we've looked at the past 5 years where that department has gone as far as percentage of county budget and the amount of increase. And it has been, I believe the word we used was unsustainable.
That was the word I used, Commissioner. Yes, the rate his budget was increasing is unsustainable because it has nearly doubled in, I think, the last 6 years.
And I think we need to take a little look at some of these budgets. I think we need to look at this all very closely. I think we're probably going to have to fund it, but I think it needs to be. Everybody's going to have to take a little hit here.
I know we've reduced the Economic Development Director, and I believe Public Works done away with the intern position. So
We have to sharpen our pencils.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions on that for Mark?
we're not statutorily required or contractually obligated. I say we don't fund it.
And
This is the worst budget cycle that I've been
in
encountering
5
as a
years.
commissioner.
So
Yeah, I can go back a lot more years than you, and this is. 08 was not. 08 was bad, but it wasn't this bad.
Especially with
There
the
was,
courthouse.
the inflation was not happening in 08 like it's hitting these departments now.
And then little surprises like the 911 and the.
That's not a little surprise. That's
Well,
a pretty big
I
surprise.
mean, I'm just saying that's really impacting us. I think the public should just be aware that this $5 million on the courthouse,
At least.
that's a lot of money. And then we've got to fund our 911 and our public safety. we've got to fund that. The county attorney's office is law enforcement, basically. Has to be funded. I'm not saying we don't have to ask questions. We do ask questions, but all these departments, and we have roads and bridges that need to be maintained.
So $4 million from the state, from LAVTR, might have helped us out a little bit, huh?
Oh, boy, yeah.
Okay. I'm glad the state's got all that money in their coffers.
Yeah, I thought it was raining. I
Yeah.
don't know what they're waiting for. Anybody have anything else?
So,
You look in the direction, go ahead, Mark.
Go ahead.
then what that does, just what I'm proposing there would still be a $24,000 transfer to the Port Authority for their fixed operational costs. They currently have about $750,000 in the bank. So for 1 year, and I'm not saying that this is every year, but for this next year, that would allow them, or they would have to spend down some of that money to fund the additional $140,000 that they use for, I think, funding the LCDC. The remaining $50,000 from that would then go towards the Riverside Resources request, which was not originally included in the budget because it was not funded in this year's budget. You all added it mid-year. So that's what that would do. If I need some clarification, though, on the county attorney's side, if you don't intend to fund that request, that would change then what I'm proposing here. So I do kind of need some direction on what you anticipate there.
I think we need to look at it closer.
Look at it closer
We need
as
to fund
in,
that
Before
request.
we get to the
like a work session. Look at it
Tomorrow,
closer.
Let's see, Mark needs to,
Yeah.
Mark
So
needs to
tomorrow,
answer.
Yeah.
Commissioners, tomorrow I am preparing the public
Yeah.
hearing notice that you will be approving next.
Well, you can approve that, and we can go down.
Right, but
So,
we
I
can
mean,
go,
So we can still discuss this county attorney's budget.
And that's why I'm asking is, do you want me to include it in the public hearing notice? You can always reduce it, but you cannot go up from that.
Probably
Yes.
so.
If I don't include it, that
Gotcha.
would resolve
we need
that.
to include everything that we need so
Right now,
that we can
right
discuss.
now is the worst case scenario.
But we need to
We
be
can
able to
always go down.
discuss.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the bottom line, is we need to be able to have the discussions, and so we can't limit that
Yeah.
because we can go down, but we can't go up.
The way I look at it is this is just a worst case scenario. We need
And the
to
public
set a
does need
limit
to-
to where we can go down. Can't go up though. So this is just the worst case scenario. Then I say that's what we need to do. Include it.
And the public needs to be reviewing this, and the public needs to weigh in.
Mm-hmm. And then we can hear between now and then
All of the 19%.
what they want to do.
Paying attention.
One of the other items that we discussed during the budget hearings were the fact that we underfund what we set aside for buildings. We're probably around $200,000 to $250,000 underfunding what we should be setting aside for the buildings, which is one of the reasons why we have this big repair coming up. I'm not addressing that in this budget, and I will explain how I plan to take care of that going forward. So the next two items were the additional mill levy. So we're going to increase the mill levy. What had been thrown out was the potential of 2 mills, so I've just kind of programmed that in. Not saying that has to be what it is, but you could allocate 1 mill towards road and bridge, which would increase them about $1,110,000. As we know, that still doesn't fund them where they should be as far as just maintaining our roadway, but it gets them closer. And you then could also do an additional mill for the courthouse repairs, which would take somewhere around 4 to 5 years then to pay off what we believe or estimate right now the repairs are going to cost on the courthouse. You can do any kind of variation with that. You could just do 1 mill, and we could split that between road and bridge and then just carry it out a little longer on the courthouse. Basically anything in between. Last year we enhanced the road and bridge department by about $1.4 million, I believe. So you could leave them for this year and take that up again next year, seeing on what happens. The courthouse is really the only one we don't have an option on. So if I could get some direction on the courthouse, then we could move to what you want to do with road and bridge. But my plan was, whatever we do with the courthouse, when we get the courthouse finally paid off, the repairs to the courthouse finally paid off, that we keep a portion of that mill levy to then fund the reserves that we should be setting aside that Aaron had asked for, about the $210,000. That way, we're not taking that hit right now along with the courthouse. It would just be an extension.
Surprise again.
And potentially by then, depending on how property valuations go, it wouldn't be as big of a hit. It wouldn't be as much of a price. So that, I've talked to Aaron about that. That's my plan there. So what would be your approach potentially on the courthouse? That will tell me what I need to do with that.
So if we had a mill established for the courthouse, could we inform the public? I mean, I understand what you're saying about keeping part of it, but maybe if we did 2 mills and the 1 mill was for the courthouse, that we did that with the understanding that after the repairs are made, that mill would go away.
So that, yes, that would be my intention. However much you would decide to allocate towards the courthouse, that once the repairs are done, it would go away. But at that time, then we would have the conversation about what we should be setting aside for depreciation on our buildings.
Right.
So I don't set the mill levy. I don't set the budget. That is the county commission's decision. I try to propose what I think we can get by with. This is an enhancement, obviously, because of the failure of the courthouse. So 4 to 5 years from now, depending on how much you levy, it could be 10 years from now. Whenever we get the courthouse paid off, it would be a discussion that the commission at that time would have to have. I can't guarantee how that conversation obviously would go. However, it would not be my intention. If I'm here preparing the budget, it would not be my intention to continue it after we've paid off the debt that we have on this building.
So with the 4.5, this last year the valuation only went up 4.5 in the county. What, now you may not have this right in front of you because it's general conversation, but how much additional monies, we know that doesn't translate directly, but how much was from property taxes did the county see additional revenue come in?
So if you mean if we kept a flat mill levy?
Yeah.
That's so that equates to around just very rough numbers. We'll say about $90,000 per mill. So if you take that across all of the mills,
we have 37 mills.
$270,000, $300,000.
I was just thinking,
I might be off a little bit on that.
So I was just thinking, if you left it with it level, how many, like couple $1 million we brought in on top of what we did last year or something? I can't remember when we actually have the books here. We can.
I got you. Yeah. So yes, we had other revenue that dropped off. So when I'm saying that, yes, we saw an increase in revenue because of that 4.5% on property tax, but we had other revenue that dropped off significantly at the same time.
Yeah.
And
So
what were those?
It's not
Can I tell people what?
Well, I think when the register of deeds came in, she
Right.
talked about how her revenue is going to be down around $250,000 to $300,000 because of the interest rates. People just aren't going out. There's not as many recordings because they're not refinancing. Back when interest rates were 2.5%, that refinancing was everybody was refinancing. So that was a big hit. We still take a hit on housing prisoners. So that we used to get more money off of that. Now it used to be almost $1 million, and now it's down around $50,000 to $60,000.
Mark,
It continues to drop off.
Mark, what happened to, I don't know if you or David know off the top of your head, I haven't had a chance to look it up yet, but I was going to, what happened to GASB 34? Remember when they passed legislation to make sure that public entities did a depreciation schedule so they wouldn't run out of money when they needed to replace assets?
We have opt out of that every year.
So that's, what GASB 34 was is that you evaluated your roadways, so when you issue debt, you could report it to people who were purchasing bonds. It didn't require that you set money aside.
Right.
If you did, it would have bankrupted every government in every state. So really what happened is the GASB stands for Governmental Accounting Standards Board. And when they were put into place, they were trying to bring the municipalities and government up to do their reporting, financial reporting, similar to what businesses do, because people who were reading business reports couldn't understand government reports. Well, I think they accomplished that about 22 years ago. I think they got to that point, and then they ran out of things to do, so they started coming up with other ideas just to make themselves relevant. And I'm saying that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it was so bad that there were states that actually passed state legislation so that they wouldn't follow GASB because of GASB 34. So what they wanted you to do was take your roads, some of them that were built 100 years ago, and put a value on them. Like, what did it cost you to build that road? And then they wanted you to depreciate them. Well, in business, that's important because you have investors. In government, it's not as important because you don't have investors, really. You have to maintain those roads, and you have to keep them up. So that's where that came from. That's what GASB 34 was. They wanted you to go out and do an evaluation of your roads and say, today, these are what our roads are worth. And then every year you're supposed to update it so that when you go out and issue debt, you can put a report together that says, we have $1 billion of infrastructure. Well, I can't sell it, so it really doesn't have $1 billion in value. And that's the point. That was the argument between government and GASB was, if I can't sell it, does it really have a value at all? And as you know, if we get rid of a roadway, we have to actually give the right-of-way back to the people who own it. So it has really no value to us at all. But that's what GASB 34 was. It still exists. We still have to. Basically, most governments opted out. The very large governments, the cities, they still do it. But most of us opted out and said, we're not following GASB 34.
We couldn't afford it.
Because we can't afford it.
Basically.
So that's what GASB is.
Yep.
And the state of Texas actually passed, that's the state I'm referring to, may have been others, but they did it right away. The state adopted legislation that said, our state will not follow GASB 34.
Okay, and I know it originated from a sewer plant, I think, in a small town, is what brought it up, and that's when they decided they would come up with this great idea to make everybody depreciate, but like you said, we can't afford to.
The U.S., so there's a lot of history to that. I don't know if you want to get into it. It was something that I was pretty involved in when it happened.
The reason we opt out of it every year.
No money.
Rural water districts are actually the real reason that it started.
Oh.
We could spin it out.
Okay, yeah, we don't want to go down there.
I have a couple questions. So the proposal you are putting forward is the 2 mills, and that would put $101,110,000 into roads, bridges, and infrastructure if we funded it fully. You would also fund the EMS, county attorney, 911, but you would reduce economic development down to the only thing we would put into economic development would be $24,000.
Yes.
So my question on that is, we have a committee on economic development that's studying, like maybe having a new industrial park or that type of thing. What role would the county moving forward have in that kind? Like, would they have to come and request funding, or we wouldn't have any funding set aside?
Well, Commissioners, the land search committee that you're referring to, there was never any obligation by the county or any of the other entities on how much funding they might allocate or not allocate. They're just looking for a potential, and then they were going to come back with a presentation, is my understanding. But we've never committed to that. In fact, I think we've been pretty vocal about the fact that we have committed all we can towards economic development with the $10 million plus we put in from the current sales tax that we have, plus before that, all the money that we put in. So that's what the direction from the board has been so far, is that we don't.
I didn't say we were obligated. I just asked the question was, if we are down the road going to move ahead to where that is a potential that we're going to need.
They would have to come in
proactively. We want to have
But we have to have funding to do it.
for that. It's kind of like you got to start planning ahead and setting some money aside for that eventuality. And if we totally defund economic development, we're not putting any money aside.
The amount that we fund currently for economic development is not for future land acquisition. It's not for setting aside money for a future project. It is specifically for the operations of economic development. It is operational expenditures. It was going towards our economic development person. It went towards the funding of the LCDC, or the Port Authority, who then passed it on to the LCDC. So that's what it was for. It was never was enough for future land development or project development. Anything like that would have to come forward and be requested from the Board of County Commissioners and any cities that might be involved and require special funding.
And maybe this is a work session item for later on, but I think economic development, when the county providing seed money for these projects, is probably more of a role for the county in economic development than funding directly into these economic development organizations. But have you asked what this is going to do to LCDC or their organization if these funds dry up?
Well, Commissioner, again, they have $750,000 in the bank. They need about $140,000 to keep them funded at what we currently fund. They asked for an enhancement this year of, I believe, close to $800,000 off the top of my head. So, no, I did not ask them what this would do for them because I'm worried about our budget. I'm not as worried about their budget.
Well, I agree with that, but when we defund Riverside Resources or we defund the Alliance, sometimes it has a ripple effect. And
it absolutely does. Yes.
Yes.
That's why we sent letters out 3 years in a row saying don't expect funding.
And this is something else. That's our funding the economic.
I just think that when we ourselves work toward having an economic development person, department, whatever, that it did not, as far as I'm concerned, produce anything. And so, I was the lone, did not want to have that department level of additional fund set aside. So to me, we do need to invest in economic development. And I don't have a problem with public-private partnerships. And I've had conversations with Mark, and I know that probably nobody else agrees with me, but I think that we need to continue to invest in LCDC, be it through the Port Authority or whatever, that to kind of cut the legs out from under it with that level of cut is not a good idea. But that's just my opinion. That's
I agree, but I partially agree with that. I think that our economic development department was a great idea, and I think what we didn't get was follow through. I was still waiting for the plan. We were waiting on the economic development plan. Remember, we talked about that for a year. We never got it.
Yeah, the plan we've been waiting 20 years for.
Well, I understand, but I think that there is a plan that the economic development organization for that serves the county does have. I'm just saying. So that's why
he was supposedly working on a plan, and we never got it. And
if they came back with a plan, and I know if they came back with a plan that Doug's brought up before, where I see them taking some ownership of putting money back into their coffer, then I'm a little more easy to say okay. But when you ask for 2 or 3 years and it's not set aside, and then the issue is, Mike, they say, well, we give tax abatement. They say, well, they don't give tax abatement. Yeah, they do a certain way because they work with the city. And the city is the one that sets that up. So it's a process. I don't like to cut on this either. I think that's too much. But I also have a real hard time if we don't change the way we're doing business out there, that there may not be any money we'll be able to spend to them.
I agree with that. But I just think we need to give this a little more thought on what maybe our direction is on economic development, because
right.
I think with this potentially another industrial park, that maybe the county's role would be to be like seed money for that rather than investing in the people.
Well, since I've been here, let's see, we give $10 million to industrial parks, and then when there's $300 and some $1,000 a year, that's been going on for 8 years. How much is enough? I mean, where's the return on the investment on the $10 million?
Well, the return, I mean.
We're not getting it.
There's a good argument that the Hills Pet Nutrition is a big return on that investment. I mean,
Well, we
that's
got an industrial park sitting out there that's empty. They built the hay off of it.
But the
this
one in
year.
Tonganoxie, when I became a commissioner, there was only one organization there, and now it's filling up. So, and that will it's already bringing money into the school district for Tonganoxie,
I know.
and it's going to benefit after they come off the abatement in 10 years, or it'll be 8 years now.
Yeah.
It'll be very beneficial. The biggest.
Then maybe we should have this conversation in 8 years.
Well,
Where the
I
economic
think we need
development money's
to
coming
kind of look at what our role is in economic development. And
I agree,
think we need
Mike.
to
I agree, Mike.
revisit
But I just think that there needs, and I have no problem. I'm set on LCDs for city manager for 20-something years. I always support them, still support them. But I think the formula's not working. And I think we've asked for a change in that formula, and we have not received anything. They've got to have something in this game so they can work with us as partners besides we just dishing money out. I agree down south that's going to pay for itself. And one of the things they may need to put in there is, you need to work closer with cities when you give away tax money all the time. That could be something very simple. Say, it's only 20% instead of 100. A lot of communities do that. But they have to have some fight in this game besides just coming here asking for money.
I think we need to have another work session on economic development.
And what do you think's going to happen to that road out in front of that?
I think, like I
Well, we
said,
have to
I think
discuss
need
the
to-
budget right now, though, and
Right.
what we want.
I
Mark to
I
do.
think
we're kind of.
we need to give more.
Do
Do we want 2 mills, or we want 1.5?
Yeah, we can take a portion, though, of what, would be set aside for road and bridge, or to or extra year onto the courthouse, whatever that you decide you want to do with the.
Right.
But we need to decide how much do we direct Mark
For this year.
for this year to discuss or to publish.
Right.
That doesn't
I
mean
would-
that in the end we don't make a decision that says we're not even going to do anything. I mean,
I'd like to hear from
But have flat-
LCDC and the Port Authority on how this is going to impact them.
So work sessions for later for that. Work
So
session later for that.
March doesn't have the time to do this.
No, I mean-
If you want to do that, then go ahead and set it.
For what Mark's going to do, it's fine, but we still have time before the budget.
Well, I'm not saying that, but he needs.
but we
we're-
have
we're
a
in the-
representative from the
Well, we're in the-
LCDC here today, so I'm just saying, so I'm
We're-
sure that she will report back that there needs to be some conversation, there needs to be some reach out and some communication.
This is not
before
really
the end of the month.
This is really not the place for that. The good
Right.
questions, we need to let Mark know, do we want
Right.
2 mills, 1.5? Everyone knowing that that's the highest it can go, but most likely it will probably come down, in my opinion.
Right.
But that's what he needs. Now, these discussions are what we're getting ready to have down the line.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But this lays a good groundwork for that.
Yeah, I agree, Mike.
Mark, can you rephrase your question to a yes or no question so we can give you direction exactly the way you want it?
Commissioners, would you like to increase the mill levy by 2 mills as proposed, 1 mill for road and bridge and one mill for the courthouse repairs? I will place that in the public hearing for next week, if that is the public hearing announcement that you'll approve next week. If that is your intention.
And you just need a consensus from the board to give you direction, or do you need a
need
motion?
vote.
We'll actually be voting next week to approve it if I have that consensus. Now, if that is not really what you want to do, I can amend that however you like, but that would be what I was instructed when we did the revenue neutral.
Okay, so for a consensus of the board, my opinion is yes, that's what we need to do.
And we can adjust that downward as we go
Yeah,
into the
we
week.
need to look at the worst case scenarios, increase the mill levy 2 mills, but we can go down from that. We just can't go.
Mine's
up.
1.5. That's just my 2 cents.
Would that be splitting it half with the courthouse and half with road and bridge?
We can always go down. This
I
is
know.
this
I'm
is
just
the
saying.
worst case
I
scenario.
will support the 2, but I just wanted to get
so
my
when he comes
comments
back
out there.
next week, it could be
I know.
1.5. We're just
I get it.
Okay.
I just want everyone to know what I'm thinking.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
What
Mine
kind of a
is
wage
2 mil.
increase did we build into this budget?
2%.
2%.
Now, for EMS, we addressed it.
Yeah, we are addressing.
And you
Yes.
guys reviewed. And for the county attorney, that would be different as well. But the rest of the employees was 2%.
The policy that we had, that we've not talked about, but it has been mentioned, about positions that go unfilled, that what's that policy entitled?
Well, I think you're referring to when you have budgeted but unfilled positions, that money can be pulled back by the county commission.
Moved into the
which
general
basically
fund.
you amend your budget downwards.
Okay, but the commission has to act
Yes.
to implement that?
Yes.
Can we, I would say that's something I think we should be, before I'd agree to any of this, that needs to be implemented. And, but as far as the budget, I mean, I don't want to increase any mills, but we got a building falling apart here. So I think we should give ourselves plenty of leeway in developing the budget.
So, Mike, after all that, what you're saying is you're okay with the two? Okay, thank you. Next.
Vicky, where are you at?
I'm good with the two
Yeah.
to start.
2, 1.5, 2, 2. Doug, do you have an amount or a percentage or a mill or?
Flat.
So we- so we-
Outside agencies, I'm against any.
So you have 3 2s, a 1.5, and a.
That's
9.
where it's at then. Move forward.
That's where we're at.
So I will prepare the announcement that you will approve then next week that establishes our budget hearing for the end of August, and it will include 1 mill going towards the courthouse repairs and 1 mill going towards.
But we can still have the discussion about the outside agencies and
Yeah.
whether or not
No,
that
everything.
can, I mean, all of those things,
Yeah, all
can-
the-
that all of those things
development.
need to come, and you can, I mean, all of those things need to be discussed before we set.
Yes,
Public hearing.
Right,
that's exactly
To
right.
establish that as the public hearing, it is the public
right,
hearing. You must approve a budget on that day.
right.
But that doesn't mean we
You
can't.
move down off of that mill levy, but understand that is the end of this month. That's not sometime in September or October.
Right, that's the end of this
That is
month.
the end of this
Correct.
But we can
All of
adjust.
all of the budget hearings and all of the budget meetings and all of the budget discussions that have went on for months leading up to
Yeah.
this time. Each year when we adopt the budget, it seems like we wait until the last meeting to actually establish the budget. So please, if you have conversations that need to be had, please let us know so we can take care of that, so that the day we're approving the budget, we know what that is.
And that's where you get
I know where I
into
am.
the priorities on what we've just
Where you going?
discussed, that we could make adjustments. You know, the different things, we don't need to go over them again.
Yep. Okay.
Or we could.
No,
There you
Mike.
Next. What else do we have to talk about?
There's
Anything?
been enough.
Yep. Okay. We'll go to presentation and discussion items. Vicky, you have anything?
Okay, I just a couple of things. First of all, we talk about the people that didn't go out and vote. I'd like to commend the 19% people that did take the time and go to the polls or mail in or whatever form they did it. Also, did y'all get an invite on the Council on Aging tomorrow at 10:30?
Yep.
Reference. Okay, I don't know if we need to make that.
Yeah, make that announcement that we're all going to be there tomorrow.
Well, it's not one of our meetings. It's just an attendance thing. I don't believe you will be discussing anything that's county.
I don't think so either. I just want to bring it up, Mark.
We have to announce it as a formal meeting, but yes.
You mean we get the governor in the room, we can't talk about county business?
Not with each other.
Okay.
And the other thing is, moving right along, the other thing is, I'll let the chair handle this week, a meeting we had in Parkville this past week. Jeff, that's all I've got.
Okay. Yeah, so to expand on that, we met with City of Parkville officials, North Kansas City, and a couple of vendors, I think, involved on the 152 bridge idea, getting some motivation on the Missouri side, which was recommended to us by KDOT, if we can get some sponsorship or partnerships working on the Missouri side to get the 152 bridge idea off the ground on the Missouri side. So
That's a good meeting.
That's what that was about, and it's probably the beginning of a series.
A series of, yeah.
Of meetings.
Were they interested?
Very.
Yeah, they are
What
now.
are the chances of being able to toll it?
So we talked about that a little bit too. There were some previous projects. Missouri has a law against tolling,
Right.
but the way they could set this up is actually put the toll
On Kansas
booth
side.
on the Kansas side. Have MoDOT maintain the highway system to the bridge on their side, KDOT to the bridge on our side, and then the bridge would be a separate entity in itself with the tolling and because it is legal in Kansas to do that. And so Missouri's already said that that's the way we could handle it.
There's a lot of good about a lot of
Yeah.
negative things to related to it.
Really, yeah.
Just time at the fair last week. And Thursday night, Baser will be opening their splash pad project.
Good.
Be parking there at City Hall.
That's
So
cool.
It's at 6:30. I'll be there for a little bit, but I got a water board meeting at 7. So hopefully the weather will cooperate. It'll be a good turnout. That's all I have.
Enjoyed the fair. Fair was good.
You didn't look like you enjoyed it.
I was inside though. Corn dogs were there.
Priorities.
We had the corn.
How was the corn?
Corn on the cob was delicious.
I put a pound of butter on anything. It's good.
Yeah.
That's a fact, Doug. Motion adjourned.
Second?
Voting.
Aye.
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 Aye.